I am happy to be able to introduce the governor of the great state of California, Gavin Newsom, everybody.
Thank you. I forgot how much fun politics is. I mean, who said that people at home, you gotta join this energy, this vibrancy. This is amazing. It is great to be, first of all, thank you guys for being here. I'm serious. Thank you for distilling us with a sense of well-being. Thank you for being the antidote to all the cynicism, all the negativity, all the fear that is out there that marks so much of our conversation. Thank you guys for stepping up and stepping in and being there. Thank you, by the way, for being there, not just for Steve and Danielle and for Aaron, but for being here for each other. Being here for Nevada, being here for our country, being here for the world we're trying to build. This has been hard. And it's been hard for a long time. You know, I don't think most of us haven't fully absorbed what you've all been through. What we've all been through together over the course of the last 6, 7 years. And, social unrest and, wars and pandemic. Trump coming down the escalator 10 years ago. January 6th. Guy lost the election, tried to light democracy on fire. In the spirit of what Stephen just said and the Attorney General just said, followed that up by calling the Secretary of State down in Georgia, demanding almost 12,000 votes. Is it a surprise that we're where we are today? Did it surprise anybody that this guy called the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, saying he was quote-unquote entitled to 5 seats for mid-decade redistricting, to try to rig the election before even one vote was cast? Why did Trump do that? Because he knows he's going to lose this November if we do our job, if we turn out. You're the antidote to all of this. It's all about you. I mean it. And so, again, thank you. It's a way of just reinforcing my gratitude, my respect for your passion and action. Thank you for stepping up and stepping in. Thank you for being leaders. Thank you for being accountable to each other, for our community, and for the world. Again, that we celebrated this year, 250th anniversary, the best of Roman Republic, the best of Greek democracy, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty. The Attorney General mentioned the rule of law, not the rule of dawn. And I hope it's dawned on everybody that our politics has changed, which means we need to change. And that as a consequence of that, we have to recognize what's at stake and put a stake in the ground with clarity and conviction. The majority getting Speaker Jeffries back as Speaker of the House of Representatives, that comes through the fight. That is what this is all about. So again, thank you for all that you've done, but most importantly, what you'll be doing over the course of the next few months. Because that will be determinative. The Attorney General has made the point, $13 million already spent against him. Donald Trump already sent a missive saying he was going to arrest your Secretary of State if he didn't turn over all the voting rolls. You may have seen today, New York Times, 4 subpoenas against journalists. The Trump administration, Department of Justice, against journalists today because he didn't like the reporting on his Qatari airplane. That $400 million grip. By the way, it's not just $400 million. There was $930+ million in the Pentagon budget. He was cutting Medicaid, 100,000 folks from slots here in Nevada, as he was putting close to $1 billion for his private plane. And don't think for a second that plane doesn't go with him when he leaves. The Trump administration is a corruption story, period, full stop. The greatest grip we've ever seen in American history. That's what we're up against, all of us. But in the spirit of what the Attorney General said, I look around this room and I see the diversity, and I see time of life, as he said, not just state of mind. And I'm reminded, I come from California. 27% of our state is foreign-born, majority minority state. We practice pluralism. That's a word you don't hear. We celebrate our diversity. We don't tolerate our diversity. That's our strength. I'm sorry, JD. I'm sorry, Rubio. That is our strength. That's what makes America great. That's what the Founding Fathers lived and died for. Our ability to live together and advance together across every conceivable difference. So it's a special place. California, yes, and Nevada. And so I'm proud to be here. We share the same lake. We share the same rivers. We share the same air. And yes, we share the same values. But they're not always present in our politics. And that's what this election's all about. We need to be repairers of that breach in the spirit of Isaiah. And so all of you, thank you, Nevada, for being here, for these three remarkable leaders. Thank you again for stepping up, stepping in. And let's win back the House of Representatives. Let's win the mayor's race. And let's take back the governor's office. Governor Ford sounds good to me. Thank you guys very, very much.
Are you guys ready to win? Yeah! Are you ready to organize to win? Well, we have a special presentation we would like to make to Governor Newsom. You are here in the historic West Side. You're here in the historic West Side. This is a community of great history, great culture, great people. And we are so delighted to have you here opening our campaign headquarters to win this cycle. But we want to present to you this jersey.
I'll take off my shirt if you want. I'm just saying, I've been working out. I saw my staff out there about to jump over.
You are now a proud member of the historic West Side. 89106.
I like it. Look at that, look at that.
So let's get out here. Let's organize. We're open right now. We can phone bank, we can door knock, we can register, and most importantly, we're going to make this election too big to rig. Too big to rig.
Good to be back here and back here with some old friends. Had the opportunity to get to know the congressman over the course of many years, and we've worked very collaboratively with the Attorney General at a time where people need to be working together across jurisdictions all across this country to meet this moment head on. So much at stake, and obviously Nevada will play an outsized role in terms of the fate and future of this country. And for me, as a member of the Democratic Governors Association, I can confidently represent the vast majority of governors that this is one of the key gubernatorial races. It's an opportunity, such a close race, to flip this state from red to blue, and so it will be one of the top priorities for the organization. Certainly for me, as a neighboring governor, I recognize intimately the importance of partnership between the state of California and the state of Nevada. What more evidence do we need than issues related to the Colorado River, Lake Tahoe? So many issues in the Sierra region, basin, and the like. And so that relationship matters to us in the state of California. And so our state of mind is firmly fixed on what happens here in November. And of course, what happens in 2026. To me, that's what it's all about. It's getting back the House of Representatives, making sure we turn out the vote against a president that, as I said, is the most corrupt president in the history of this country. And it's just jaw-dropping, including what he did today against journalists and the subpoenas that he pushed out against journalists. This guy's just winding up. There's a ruthlessness with this administration and his power ministries and how he's used the Department of Justice, how he's using the FBI and the IRS against his political enemies. And so it's also a deeply sober moment in America, and it's another reason I'm here.
Governor, what other states will you be visiting ahead of the midterms?
We'll be a lot of states across the country, a lot of states across the South in particular. pretty, you can't, you know, if you're a thinking person, you can't help but be disgusted by what happened with the Voting Rights Act, what happened with Governor Landry in Louisiana, and how he literally stopped and suspended the election after votes were already cast. That happened in this country, so that he can redraw the districts to eliminate black representation. That happened in 2026 in the United States of America. That's happening all across the South. So that's me as a human being showing up on behalf of my 4 kids so that they'll look back and say, well, at least I tried to meet this moment head on. And so I'll be all throughout the South, in particular with an emphasis and focus on voting rights, what's happening, this redistricting fight, which of course I was deeply part of with Proposition 50, and the fight generally. I mean, I made the point up there a moment ago, you know, our pathway back to the majority is through the fight, and we have to, I think, be sober about this moment. You know, the old rules no longer apply, and the new rules are being written. And I don't want them written by the other side. I don't want to continue to react to the agenda of the other side. We saw that a year, 2 years ago, ESG, DEI, ESG, anything with 3 letters. These guys weaponized. We were constantly on the defense. They were rewriting history, censoring historic facts. They were on a banning bench, thousands of books banned in this country. It's happening again in 2026. So this moment requires us to get on our toes and to lean in, and that's what I intend to do over the course of the next few months.
Governor, do you think that Nevada should be first in the presidential nomination calendar?
You know, I think Nevada certainly has an argument to make. I mean, it's, you know, I think it was represented by both Stephen and the Attorney General. I mean, it's just one of the most diverse states, truly representative of I think, where not only America is going, but where America is today. It's certainly within the Democratic Party construct. It's, you know, it's a union state. And represents so many of the issues that are represented in this state are represented, I think, broadly throughout the United States. But I'm also deeply sensitive. There are many other states vying for that, and I want to get into the middle of all that. It's for more objective minds than mine to make that determination. But Nevada certainly can make a strong case.
Looking ahead to 2028, what do you make of Democrats progressive leaning and specifically Democratic Socialists making pushes across the country? We saw them win primaries in New York and Colorado, and how do you see yourself fitting into that?
I see it's, for me, very familiar, and it's very healthy. When I say familiar, maybe it's nature nurture. You know, when I ran for mayor, just for what it's worth, I ran against a member of the Green Party, which was, you know, had aspects of the DSA that we know it today. In fact, after he lost that election, very talented individual, he was the vice presidential nominee for Ralph Nader. So I've seen this ascendancy before, you know, Green Party and progressives in the Bay Area, where I'm from, that, you know, there's so many aspects of the debates and arguments today that are just deeply familiar, and I think it's a very healthy thing. And look, I'm one of those Democrats that deeply believes in addition, not division. And so I want a Big Ten party. I want to win. The right is ruthless. They know how to win. And so often my party, I say with love and respect, wants to win an argument and is willing to sacrifice an election. We need to win back the House of Representatives. We need to save this republic, our democracy. I believe that in my soul. I intimately do not believe this country will be recognizable if we don't have Speaker Jeffries getting that gavel in the matter of months. I really believe that. Donald Trump is just winding up. This guy's not screwing around. You saw with the Elections Commission, it's a stacking of everything else he has. This guy has a private police force. He's going after his political enemies. He's going after the journalists and media. I mean, the cronyism, crony capitalism, the corruption, the grift, the self-dealing, $2.2 billion. You know, people out there literally watching that lost money on that meme coin. $3.8 billion was lost. He made $600 million at everybody else's expense. He promised to make us healthier and wealthier. We're poorer and sicker in this country. These tariffs, trade, look what's happened to Vegas. Look what's happened to tourism. Look what's happened to your pocketbook. So this needs to be called out, and we need to do it with conviction and clarity. And to the extent that our party wants to build its energy in terms of that progressive force, I think it's a very healthy thing.
Governor, for 2028, are you considering running for president?
Yeah, I made the mistake of being very transparent and honest about 6 months ago when someone said, well, have you ever thought about it? And I said, well, yes. And as a consequence of being a little more honest than most about that, then there's just more heightened speculation. But that's fate that will determine that. I mean that. And I know that could sound rote from where you're sitting. I really believe it's fate. You meet the moment. You represent something where you can uniquely and distinctively make the case that your voice matters in a competitive field. Well, there'll be 2 stadiums full of Democrats. I mean, every conceivable stripe of Democrat will be on display on the entire spectrum. And you have the why. You have the burning why, because you guys see right through it. You can't answer the why question, then you can never endure the how. And so that moment will present itself over the course of the next many months. Meanwhile, I just got through my budget, balance for 2 more years, historic investments, and I've got a little bit of a gap here, and that gap will bring me not just to Nevada, but some of the southern states as well.
You said earlier this week you didn't think Graham Plattner had been vetted enough. What do you make of the now very crowded field running to replace him with just 4 months to go?
I don't know enough about any of them. I candidly just don't.
But are you worried about any of them having enough time to
I worry about a lot of things. But one thing I've learned in life, older you get, I learn about what I can, I worry more about what I can control versus things I can't control. I can't control that. People Maine will determine that. And, but look, what I said was pretty obvious. I mean, it wasn't even particularly revelatory, pretty self-evident on the vetting side. And, it's been unfortunate for me because the momentum of the party is just off the charts. And you're feeling, you feel with the passion, the energy, even in this room, sort of a more tight and isolated example, but you're seeing it all across the country. And I think it's representative in a critical way that doesn't get as much attention bottom up, which means the Assembly and State Senate races we're winning. Flipped almost 30. They flipped not one. That, to me, is the most significant development. It's not all these fancy races on top. It's what's happening in the bottom all across this country, and that shows you where the energy is. So I want to keep that momentum. This got a little bit in the way of that, but we'll find our way around it.
Last question.
Are you planning to...
Oh, sorry.
Governor, how important is the Latino vote in this election?
I mean, come on. It's determinative. Period, full stop. And, I'll tell you, I've done this a long time. Nothing more emotional for me than being there in Los Angeles a year ago. Watching people being torn asunder, families. Remember, it all happened in California first. 4,000 National Guard, 700 active duty Marines who weren't sent overseas. They were sent to the second largest city in America to terrorize communities. Greg Bovino is a Californian guy dressed up like he just got off the set of some 1930s movie. Masked men, no identification. I'll never forget meeting him for the first time. It was at the Democracy Center when we kicked off Proposition 50. They tried to intimidate people from walking in. A poor soul who was selling strawberries across the street was arrested and disappeared. Talk to me about the Latino community. I remember walking into, a heavily populated Latino area, and just the emotion, people coming up, saying help. Intense. So, we have to have the backs of the community. And I think the way back into power is represented by how serious we are to have the backs of the Latino community, not just rhetorically, but to be there for the community. It's had our backs. You don't have, I'm impressing you here. You talk about essential workers, talk about essential nature of community, holding the glue that holds this community together. It's represented in the Latino community. So to me, that's here, not just here.
Governor, in a Terrence Group poll, in a hypothetical matchup against J.D. Vance, you're trailing him slightly.
Okay, it's over. I'm going back to work in the private sector. All those things. The hypothetical polls now are they're fun. They're catnip. They're good for headlines. They're good for gossip. They mean absolutely nothing at this stage, and it won't for well over another year, objectively. And then we all go through this process. You look at national polls, and they mean nothing, because the only polls that matter are what's happening in states like yours. in small states. And so the whole thing is we all go through this process, and it's kind of fun. And people that are on top, you know, sort of humble brag about them. People below say polls don't matter. You know, so I'm somewhere in the spectrum maybe.
Governor, are you planning to respond if you do receive a subpoena in the federal investigation?
Yeah, I'll respond to anything. I've been dealing with this for 14 months. You know, this guy's been trying everything. Couldn't find anything on me, so now he's going after my wife and family. Come on. That's the United States of America in 2026. Going after your political enemies. This is sick. From the most corrupt administration in American history. Period, full stop. The most corrupt family in American history. Period, full stop. The Witkoff family, the Kushner family. What they're doing with the Board of Peace so they can get a piece of the Middle East. Selling out our national security, high-value computer chips in order to get investments for World Liberty Financial. The corruption as it relates to critical minerals and drone companies. This is sick. I mean, how the hell you countenance this? And how about all the people that are complicit standing around him? Yes, sir. I don't know which worse, the supine Congress, Johnson, or Trump himself. Trump's doing it in the open. It's all the people that know better that aren't doing better. Besant and all these guys that are part of this. They all need to be held to account. They all do. Period. And so, you know, count me into, yeah. Got nothing to hide, please. You know, I've been doing this for decades and decades. No one's accused me of anything until Donald Trump came along. And so, you know, if you don't see through that, I'm not sure you've seen very clearly. And, you know, again, I also say that as a guy that's worked with Trump. You know, I'm not here to put a crowbar in the wheels of his, you know, front wheel of his bike. I want to work together, but also I'm going to stand my ground.
You hear for support for the Attorney General. Why do you feel he's a better candidate opposed to the governor?
Well, I just, you know, you talked about the Medicaid cuts. I mean, you care about health care, you care about the welfare of the community, you care about the environment, you care about schools, you care about, you know, child care, you care about your family. This guy is going to represent you much more fully and substantively than the current occupant. I'm not here to bash Lombardo, but, you know, it seems to me his biggest priority is to, you know, break his veto record every year, where he's trying to find things to veto just so he gets his numbers up. I mean, you could do better. I just assure you, you can do a lot better. And, you know, I've just seen your Attorney General up close fighting the good fight. And I've also seen, it's interesting, it's fun to watch. You get to know people over years and you see this sort of, he's growing into it. And we all, you know, we're all part of that. You know, he's finding his congruency now. It's not just, again, it's head and heart. It's, you know, so I think he's a fighter, and he'll get things done. And I think my personal opinion, not even close, he represents, I think, the vast majority of people in this state in terms of their values. And I just hope that's represented in the governor's mansion, because I don't believe it is today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
we are at time.
Thank you.